April 15th, 2021. Should be good to kick things off, I guess. Do we have initiative updates? Joe, Michael? Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Ben. If you have one.
We have, I think the only thing that's interesting to report at the moment in internationalization slash INTL is moving the Unicode NPM package for INTL over into the node.js project. We're trying to figure that out at the moment, so we got to get that taken care of. Other than that, there's a lot of work to do. And I'm sort of trying to take a broad overview of where we are and try to figure out how to merge, how to move forward with that, and then how to merge some of these efforts on the translation side again with the website redesign project. So I'd like to step my foot into the website redesign project, join the next meeting or whatnot, and see how that's going, and try to help push those things along.
I don't know if you know, but they started doing the website redesign meetings are weekly now on Wednesdays at 2 p.m.
Great.
Yep.
Awesome.
I think an IBMer, Anu, if I remember her name correctly, their name, wants to help translate Turkish.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
So I think she may have a PR open or an issue or something.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there's no shortage, I feel like, of in the past of people who want to translate something into their language or work on that. I think right now it's more like taking stock of that, taking stock of the avenues that they can do that, and making sure those are in place again, so that we're not just funneling people with good intent to nowhere. So I'd love to at least get some of those, like getting started documents back in place and available. And then I feel like I've always had a good return on tweeting about it. So saying like, hey, when it's right, but it's like, let's stage it, get those things in place, the avenues they can go to, and then tweet and say like, hey, let's get involved and here's where to go. And then also it's, I feel like it's a similar thing for the website redesign. It's like people need to have things to, those objective goals to do, issues to assign, things that are very concrete, because it can just, we can kind of gain momentum and then sort of lose steam if nobody has like concrete goals to achieve or whatever. So I think just like that's kind of where things are at.
For the translations, it would be good to celebrate regularly on the Twitter or wherever else, like the translations, the different languages, like, hey, we just got this translated, or maybe a bit like even the build working group, if somebody's taken ownership of a particular language, giving them a periodic like, hey, and thanks to X for keeping the Turkish one up to date or something, right?
Yeah, and it also, like, it's low-hanging fruit, like as far as just keeping the excitement of the rolling thunder going. I feel like that's super low-hanging fruit for that. And I also feel like it touches on being welcoming, like, to people from like every language, which is really cool. It's a really cool place to be, because I know every time I've tweeted something about, hey, Spanish is moving along or whatever, like a whole bunch of people from Spain and from Mexico go woohoo. So like I think that's definitely something we should get in the practice of. That's good.
Yeah, another thought I had too, and the person I was thinking of, their name is Fatma, and they join the Slack channel. A good thing too sometimes is to see what their experience is and see if the documentation is matching up or where the gaps are or where they're confused and stuff.
Absolutely.
I guess also like what's the most important or most useful to them? Like, if not everything's going to be translated, which is possibly the reality, like what are the key things that they would think would be most useful to be translated, right?
Yeah, and also I feel like it's a mix between that and then the structure of what they're like the structure of how it's happening. So like on the Crowdin side. So like we've been using Crowdin in the past. Some of the last most meaningful conversations we had in the IATN working group were like, hey, what is a reasonable structure for people to feel like, hey, I am a translator, so I'm going to translate, or hey, I'm going to help verify, or hey, I'm going to manage this language. identifying those kind of roles of ownership and helping people be in the place that they want to be, I feel like is really important, especially for crowd. And then just like enabling them through kind of designating those roles. So it's like, yeah, what's the best way to translate something, but then what kind of role do I have in this process? I think is a good thing too.
Yeah, you're right, because like the validation is often just as important, if not more. Like somebody does it, but then they feel much more comfortable if a few other people have looked at it. And
yeah, and I think in general that's the practice on Crowdin, which is like, there's always verifying, because there's a lot of subtleties that come into play. Obviously, when you're translating between two different languages, there's cultural differences. There's there's colloquial differences. Like, and you have to make sure that there's also reserved words that you don't want to like, clobber. So, and stuff like that. So like, there's a lot of different things that you're looking at when it comes to that, and having the right person to both translate like the intent of what, needs to be said in a language, and then also recognize, with something like a glossary, like these are the words that we want to not change, or they might have to stay like in their English form or whatever, or in their whatever form they need to be.
right.
There's some subtleties there, but yeah, like these are all things that should be written about and communicated through the getting started documentation and that sort of thing. So I feel like that's kind of where it's at, is like, okay, let's get that going and get people where they want to be.
One thing that is in this vein that I've been thinking about, so I spend a lot of time with CNCF folks outside of like tech work stuff. And one of the things that I learned that CNCF does is they actually provide the service of building websites for projects. Like they just give projects that. Joe, you might be a good person to kind of gauge this. Would it be helpful if we requested that the foundation help us in that way, like actually basically pay someone to also help work on the website? And by pay someone, I mean probably like some kind of like agency to help us kind of push it over to a place where it's complete and it has the infrastructure that we need for various things, like expanding on what the project members have already done. Do you think that's something that we like a good discussion to have?
I think it's a good discussion to have at a minimum. Yeah. I mean, the website in particular makes me crazy, and I would love to just have it done.
Yeah, I would like to have it done too.
Yeah.
I hear you on that. Okay.
And I think like having it done also then helps unlock other things. Like it unlocks a lot of other work that people want to be doing. So I think that we're fine to do that. I also think that perhaps one interaction there that I've never been sure of how we're going to figure out is like docs in Node Core, and how like we want to style them like the website. I assume we're not going to check Gatsby into Node Core.
Yeah. Docs is a big question mark. Ben Halverson is wanting to add front matter to the docs so that they can be properly pulled into Gatsby and have things kind of work out. But the docs currently have their own sort of metadata embedded in like HTML comments, files and everything. It's that's a whole nother like worms. And frankly, I wonder about a docs team. I think I've mentioned a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, separating those two concerns out from like designing and implementing an infrastructure, and then also having people worry strictly about the documentation is a healthy thing.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
So if there's someone that's interested in like owning that and separating those things out, I think that's a healthy conversation to have.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we should probably do with that is say like we can tackle docs after we tackle the website, rather than tackling them at the same time, just because of how Herculean that's gonna need to be.
Yeah.
Which then
keeping them.
Sorry, go ahead.
just keeping them separate makes total sense to me, I think, because you got to bite off something manageable.
Right. Yeah, and like style is style. Like if you have the style for the website, you can figure out how to apply that to the docs. Because like I mean, obviously you want things to be consistent, and you want I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the style for the docs right now isn't super great. Like it's a bit rough. But you know, so it's still I think it's still good to try to go to update that, but yeah, I think that's something that's probably a good path to take there. And I think that
Yeah.
part of that could be then that becomes two different engagements with whatever, you know, if we were to do something with a agency that we trust, that becomes two different engagements with them.
Yeah, and I even think if we got the website done, then we could focus on the docs, and that is doable. It's just like
exactly, chunking it, chunking it into doable work also, and like you know, changing it like that also gives the opportunity for you know, people who have time to work on one thing or time to work on the other to like choose one to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really healthy thing to do. Also, like not doing the documentation in parallel with the website will probably speed things up. You know, because because then like afterwards, just given the state that the two entities are in, if the one thing is done, then after you're done with that, you know, then you can take stock of, okay, these are the APIs in place, these are the things, this is how how it works at the moment, what it looks like, as you said, Tierney, and then then we can fit you know, this massive documentation thing in with the way it already works, rather than trying like having this conflation as they're both trying to be built in parallel. Now, if you were to do that at the beginning and like design it from like the you know, docs first kind of thing, that's different. But this isn't that. This is like two different things we're trying to reconcile. So I think, yeah, it's probably important to do one and then the other.
The other thing that I think is like, it's still, and I think you know, Tierney's brought this up in the past too, like it should be really clear what problems you know, and you know, if we went externally, like what problems are we trying to solve?
Yep.
We don't want just like a new framework that nobody in the project understands. It needs to be something which is substantially better and solves X problems, and the people in the project can easily understand. Because like I know what we have isn't necessarily modern but I haven't followed the website redesign to like understand well enough like what is it that's going to be massively better afterwards, right? Like I don't hear people I just no, I don't hear people screaming about, hey, you don't have, you know, this is causing us a big problem or whatever.
I do. I have definitely heard people complain a lot about the Node website. So that's part one. I mean, I also have tremendous issues with it. Often, like, you know, whenever I go to find the Node logo, there's like 3 different paths that it could be under, and I never remember which one it is. Or like, you know, the doc site, if you go to the doc site, it doesn't actually go to the doc site. You have to click a link in that page. So like there's a bunch of things there, and then on top of that, just like, you know, I got permission from her to say this, like someone as experienced and smart as like Sue Hinton has trouble with like docs. Like that, she told me that the docs are basically unusable for her. Which yeah, it's like,
so the docs though we were talking about is a separate thing, right?
Yes.
So I'm back to just playing the website in terms of, you know, it's the just, so we don't need to get into it. I'm just saying like a key thing is to make sure it's like, here are the things we want to solve, versus just reinventing, right?
Yeah, I think
and focus on those. Yeah.
To your point, Michael, it's really important. It's really important to have in mind, like, how is this going to be easily maintained, like by, you know, a majority of people after it's quote unquote done, or to a milestone where it's, you know, like good to go and deployed. So like, yeah, what are we using that is recognizable, usable, understandable by everybody, you know, with like Gatsby and React and like whatever it is, you know, like how is it going to be maintained? Is it familiar, or are we succumbing to things like using something that may not be a long-term, a long-term solution because it's cool right now, or is it presented because it's in somebody's business interest, or like whatever it is. Like you gotta, I think, like fighting those things off in the interest of maintainability by a majority of people who can easily be familiar with the technology is really important. So that should be a goal in and of itself, I think, Michael. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the minimal, right now it's fairly easy to clone and make a change. I bet it could be easier, but it's like having something similar where like you can, today you can clone it, you can follow the instructions. It's like, yeah, okay, I made a simple change.
Yeah, and I honestly worry that we're creating a new difficult thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Gas fee's popular and people love it, but like, do we even? I mean, we're pretty far down this road, so this is maybe I shouldn't even say this, but like, should we just be using like 11D or something? A simple static site generator that makes it really straightforward as to how you manage it. Like, do we need dynamic React components and
yeah, it's just like more, more like less framework, more standard web technology.
One thing I will say is we've talked. I should time box this.
Sure.
Yeah.
I definitely want to make sure we have time for other things. I realized that like I'm invested in this since I wasn't paying attention to time, but we should definitely time box this.
Yeah.
And we're probably not the right group to talk about it. My point was really just that we should clearly document, those goals
and for what it's worth, I believe we have documented that in the past. So
yeah, I'm not saying we haven't, just like that's the key thing in my mind. So
let me quickly note this. Discussion.
This is what happens when Ben comes back. We just sit here and gab.
Well, I really like if we can, it's great to hear you'll be back in time to help move this sort of internationalization side, because that's kind of a nice, like you said, I think it's something we can do that, helps people get involved and, shows that we're trying to be as open as we can. May not be perfect, but the better we can make the translations.
Yeah, and they directly relate. So, the more excitement that is generated around internationalizing things also bleeds into the website getting better and that sort of thing. So it's kind of a full circle thing. I think the number one, we should probably time box this, as Tierney said.
You go ahead. You can say your thing.
I'm just going to say my thing. What was I going to say? So a hard part with any project, especially, like the community committee or efforts in the community committee, is reciprocity and that sort of thing. And so, and getting people into a place to where they feel like they can do it without the need for a constant mentorship or whatever. So like being able to be able to do things. So I think a interesting, maybe it's more of a CommComm thing, but it's also related to these projects, is like figuring out, as we're inviting people, how do we mentor people into the project so they feel like they can also mentor other people into the project, which is something to maybe document, as well as work on baking into the ethos of these projects. Like, how do we mentor mentors so that even if you're not directly mentoring, they're going on to bring other people in, because otherwise things just fizzle and they stagnate and they don't go anywhere. So anyway, it's something I've been thinking about. I'd love to churn on and try to come up with some meaningful conversation or an action item type stuff. Maybe an example would be in the documentation for getting started in the website and internationalization, but also for CommComm and things like that.
Cool.
And that's in a way a good segue. I can just mention mentorship, or at least part of mentorship, as an initiative update. Well, we were looking at getting a mentee for CommComm, and there was a question in the doc and fleshing this out. How do we, what are the skill requirements? So I created an issue in CommComm issues. and added a few ideas for skill requirements. But if anybody else wants to add their thoughts there, I'll drop it here and I'll drop it in the notes.
Cool. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Any other initiative updates, Michael, Joe?
I can't think of any other initiative updates.
Let me do a quick CommComm one then. I put up the issue to have a election for the OpenJS Foundation Project Cross Project Council. Nominations started 2 days ago. Nominations will close on the 20th. If you're interested in that seat, please self-nominate. The 23rd balloting will close and the handover will begin. If it's not Joe, if it's Joe, then the last 2 steps don't matter. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there as a thing we're doing. Do you got anything else outside of that, Joe?
Let me just ask, trying to read through this issue really quickly. Is there any expectations in a self-nomination or just kind of like a raise your hand?
I believe it is self-nominated. No, it's just raise your hand. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think at this point, like, I think if there's multiple candidates, then maybe it makes sense to write up something,
Yeah.
right? But if not, there's no point to force somebody to go through it if they're the only volunteer.
Yeah. And I'll add another comment to volunteering. If anybody is interested, I can share with them what that looks like and such. But I'll do that afterwards. Sometimes we touch on social team stuff, Tierney.
Yep.
I'll just say real quickly, I did not have any time to tweet out that.
I just did, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I remembered.
Great. Mary messaged me, and I again haven't had time to even read her things. I left them unread, but I think she's working on the personal access token stuff, wants to automate it. So I will read her messages, and maybe if she wants help, we can have a group chat or something and see how we.
Just gotta go check my door for a second. Hold on.
Michael did help me or start to help me with that. Realized we did it from his account rather than from the bot account, so we will. It might be worth it to. I guess I'll hold off with Michael on getting that done. Did you create an issue for it? Is that why that came up with Mary?
No, I messaged her. A week or 2 ago.
We've both been messaging her about it.
I was very gentle and just said, "Hey, I know I see a lot of people are asking for this. We're one group, but I'm messaging you to offer help if there's anything I can do."
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, we still haven't merged the doc to add multiple orgs, despite having operated with multiple orgs for quite some time. That might be something we want to look into. There was another thing that I believe required another CommComm, or no, it did. So one thing I will say for CommComm members, I put up 2 issues to archive former CommComm initiatives or inactive CommComm initiatives. One is Node.js education and the other is Node.js badges. They have both been inactive for 3 years. At that point, I feel like it's better to archive them and say, like, if we want to open them again, we can. But if there's, I prefer not to have, like, I actually found them. Oh, I never commented on the issue. Michael, I went through and updated several of the CommComm repos with to main. I meant to comment and then I got distracted.
Okay.
I will go through and comment on that. But yeah, I found them through the process of going through and updating like the relevant CommComm repos that I was somehow involved in. Or that I they were orphans at this point, just because there was a bunch on that list. So I went through and did that as chair. Yeah.
Did you say
but
there was a
those-
PR or issue for those?
Yeah, I was looking for it too.
in admin.
An admin. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
sorry. It's just to archive them.
Yep. Yeah,
And
no, we found a couple similar things going through the TSC list, which we still are, or sorry, the list of the TSCs looking at in the node project. So
Yeah.
totally makes sense that this is sort of a good way to audit and do this kind of thing.
Yeah. I feel like formalizing that somehow is probably a good idea. But yeah. So yeah, that works well. I think, I think those can relatively safely be archived. I mean, the last commit was from someone who's not been in the project in badge or in education for 3 or 4 years. I forgot that I was working on the getting started thing. So I'm glad I refound that. But that's a nice repo. It's actually it's held up pretty well. Yeah. So that's some more CommComm stuff from me on that. Joe, do you have anything, or Michael, do you have anything from OpenJS Foundation?
Before we go to that, sorry,
Yeah,
Michael,
sorry.
I'll just add really quickly. I'm noticing in admin, the social team private repo looks approved, so I can create that. Or someone can
Do you
create
have the ability to create that?
I don't know if I do actually.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you might. I don't know. I think if you're an org member, you can create repos, I think.
It looks like I can.
Okay, go ahead. You go ahead and do that then. Yeah.
Okay. Any guidance on that?
Make sure it's private. That's the only thing.
That's funny. I just out of habit clicked public. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say things about our typical licenses and contributing and stuff, but maybe that's less important if it's private. So
yeah, I'd say just go through and add a README. And yeah, otherwise it should be good.
Okay, great.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, so but on the foundation side, well, I guess we should maybe say, Michael, tomorrow's the last day for the Node 10 survey. Is that right?
Next 10, yeah, closes tomorrow.
Cool.
The other thing I was going to say, the board meeting is next week. I don't have anything on my list for the sort of CommComm node side of things, so let me know if there is. I'll let you cover the CPC side if there's other things of interest.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what's of interest. I mean, we're working on JSlandia, the individual membership program, and trying to kind of move that further in interesting and fun ways. OpenJS World continues. I think speaker acceptance stuff went out. So if you submitted, you should have something in your email. What else have we been working on? Sometimes my brain just has a hard time getting back there.
We did work on the like the COC handling, that kind of stuff. So there might be, I think there might be just if people are interested, you can keep an eye out for some PRs against that kind of stuff, probably to come.
Yeah, and just for some context there, we wrote a lot of it as we were building the foundation, and now are realizing, some of the gaps and some of the things we just need to make simpler and clearer and better.
Extremely familiar for CommComm and TSC and Node and lots of different stuff.
Yep. I don't know if there's anything else of high importance. We're working on like diversity, equity, and inclusion. Not much to report there at the moment, but what we're trying to do is take some of these larger initiatives and just really have their own meeting. Even though we've instituted this bi-weekly thing where the off weeks we have a working session, some of the bigger ones we're trying to break them out into their own meetings. And along that line, Jory created an issue that tries to look into the future in terms of what we might use working sessions for, to give people some ability to plan and such. So yeah, interesting stuff happening.
I guess the other one I'd mention is Darcy's, mentioned in the last CPC meeting that he's close to getting the first collaboration space launched around the sort of like how do we manage the vulnerabilities which are in your dependencies but don't really affect your application, and like how can we handle those better so that we don't have to force updates and releases and stuff when they really aren't solving anything. So
yeah.
Looking forward to that kicking off soon. So if anybody's interested, just keep an eye on the repo there, and hopefully in the next few weeks we'll kick that off.
Yeah. And I think that covers it. I guess the other thing I'll mention is a topic that has come up a few times that I think is good for us to consider here and in the community is collab summits. So virtually not the greatest format. So we'll see how things progress in terms of the world being able to get out and hang out with each other. But I think at least for the tooling group, we're thinking about like, what sort of things can we do virtually, and whether we should be thinking about something as a big event or just kind of doing our own and the different initiatives and working groups and kind of going from there.
Certainly, like in the past, the diagnostic working group had just a diagnostic summit. So
yeah.
That worked actually quite well.
Yeah, so something to keep in mind.
Yep. Okay, cool. I don't have anything else. I don't think. Yeah. Cool. Let me make sure I do this real quick. CPC board meeting updates. Cool. Thank you. Agenda items, we don't have a ton. Moderation team certification, this is one we do need to do. So if you could all, I suggested that we, I suggested that we move this issue to the admin repo. If y'all could comment your thoughts on that, that'd be a good one, just so we don't have to have two competing issues. But
that works for me too.
Yeah. I don't actually know if we have to vote on this, but
I think it's more that people are like, hey, I plan to continue, and
Yeah.
unless there's objections, right?
Yeah. Oh, if there's no objection, if it's a no objection thing, then that's fine. I thought we had to vote as a whole to certify the group, but I could be wrong.
I haven't read it, but here, okay, well, why don't we go? Is that in the mentorship?
It'd be an admin.
Or the admin repo? Okay, because
it'd be moderation.
I'm guessing that it's, we got to reach our regular consensus, which doesn't necessarily require a vote.
You're right. It's consensus after the initial vote on individuals.
Right.
That's what it was. I just saw your comment, Ben. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah, so for the moderation team thing, I think I believe you're correct, Michael. It's consensus. I have no objection. I also abstain on my own behalf. Like, I am one of those members. I, as someone who's participated in and also observed the other members doing their work, observe them when I've had to recuse myself. I have no objection to any of them. They've all done a fantastic job. I have nothing.
It actually does say we need a vote, so.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Yeah, it says annual recertification vote is required for all moderation team members. For an individual to be recertified, a simple majority vote in favor of recertification is required by both the TST and CommComm. So I think just an issue that, and is there, I wondered if Rich had opened one in admin, or maybe the TSC one. I guess, yeah, doing it there, right. There is one in the TSC repo as well. So I think having one in admin that everybody basically can say do their +1 makes sense.
Yeah. Cool.
And I see that's the one that you were mentioning anyway. So if that's moved to admin and then everybody votes there, it makes sense. Yeah.
And I don't think we have a problem doing an async vote there.
No.
Yeah, cool. I'd say we should. That's probably the path we should take. Cool. That sounds good. I guess we can follow up more with that issue as it gets moved and develops and stuff. Cool. I don't think there's anything. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I can do that.
And then when do we do the election of the CPC members from CommComm? This has been replaced. I didn't update the Google Doc. I maybe not the issue either. But this has been replaced by 675, which is please raise your hand if you want to be the member. Joe has in this meeting self-nominated. So that's great. Yeah. Think we're good on that. Oh, thanks for promoting Ahmad. Make co-host. Cool. Should be good. And I think that's the agenda exhausted. So if we have other things, we can talk about those. Otherwise, we can get 15 minutes of our time back.
Can I just ask a point of clarification? Y'all were talking about Summit and how that's gone virtually versus not, and how you'd like to change things and whatever. I'm interested to talk more about that. I know we're ending the meeting here, but there's sort of a difference in internationalization between translators and people who care about things like ICU and NTL and Node. There's two very different things, but kind of in the same area. It'd be nice to have some kind of summit, I feel like, for the ICU, INTL crew of people, to kind of focus as things transition to being more maintained on the node side versus relying solely on the Unicode, for maintaining some of those modules. Just a thought moving forward. The other thing is there any engagement? Like I see a little bit of engagement on our live streams, like even in this working group meeting. And I'm wondering if like it's a thing, do people like moderate the comments while we're live streaming and answer, questions and things like that? Is that a thing at all, or something we care about?
I think it used to be a thing, but we got such low engagement that I've honestly just ended up ignoring it, not out of like malice or intentionally. It's just like after checking there for the 10th time and having nothing be said,
Right.
it's like cool. So I guess like totally fine to do that. But yeah, we don't normally, or at least I don't normally. Maybe others do.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same for all the meetings I'm involved or chair, and I think part of it is like anybody can just join the meeting. So if people want to ask questions and whatever, they're free to join and participate.
Yeah,
so there's less of a need to have the the chat based stuff.
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, cool. Thank y'all for thank y'all. It's good to see everybody again, and really excited to see you guys or you people, and good to see you, Ahmad.
Yeah, it's nice to see Ahmad.
Hi.
I joined a little bit late. I was just still running with the day, like same time, I guess.
The one thing, Ben, to your point of a summit for ICU and the stuff getting moved in, I know we've done like diagnostic summits before. I was very disappointed I didn't get to go up to Canada for that. I'm not gonna lie, but doing a remote one, I think that's probably possible, and
Totally.
we have the ability to do that. I'm sure the foundation would be able to support that if that's a thing we want to do. I know Michael, I believe you were one of the organizers of the diagnostic summit, Michael.
First one in Ottawa, yeah. The one then we had a second one in Germany.
Yeah.
If people wanted advice or whatever, happy to.
Yeah.
That'd be wonderful to work something out, at least logistically. I think here's the thing, right? It's this in the past has been solely owned by like one person pretty much, which is Stephen Loomis, right? And he has the knowledge to share, but he's more focused on CLDR. and things like that, for the Unicode project. And we just need to create more of a knowledge share and more of a ubiquity across people who want to support, ICU and INTL and that sort of thing. So I think it's just a good time to try to do that and get more interest and more of like a secure, kind of secure the working group for that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I think why the summits have worked well in the past is it's the physical getting together. It gets you two things.
Yep.
One, you no longer have the time zones to worry about, because that seems practically impossible when you want to do it across the world. The other one too is it keeps people focused on the topic, right? It's just too easy. Even if we schedule like a 2-day long summit virtually, people are it's easier to just say, oh, I'm going to dip out for an hour, I have this important meeting or whatever. Whereas when you've traveled somebody, like you're there, and and I guess the third thing is like, there is something about being in person, having the chats while you're in the breaks. Everybody seems to come out with a, good sense of excitement, and there's a real focus on like, hey, next steps and all that. So not to say we shouldn't do virtual ones, but like, as soon as we can do in-person ones again, we should be thinking about that for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing like that. It's really invigorating. It's some of the best memories I have of being in the Node project as well. So
yeah,
definitely can agree more. Yeah.
Cool. With that, I think we can go ahead and wrap things up. Thanks everyone for joining.